Another doctor come, another doctor go. What the hell have they done with our show? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to be super negative on the last three episodes of Doctor Who. Welcome back to part 14 of this series that I have been doing for the last month. I've been recording it for several months, and I'm recording this. You are seeing this, if you're seeing it upon airing, within a day of me recording it. I wanted to finish my Doctor Who timeline update, but the more I think about it, I have been updating it weekly, and I feel like it would be nice to give it some space to breathe before I unlist the last one and post a new update. Plus, this way I can brag about the fact that I did get this video out before Who Culture, which is a positive for me personally. But there will be massive spoilers ahead. This video is going to talk about my personal rankings for the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials, those being the Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder, and The Giggle, which just aired within the last 24 hours of me recording this video. So, that's your spoiler warning. I don't usually give spoiler warnings, but given the fact that this episode just came out and maybe you clicked on this video just out of curiosity, I will be including spoilers for today's episode, The Giggle. That being said, these are my rankings. Feel free to debate me in the comments below. I will say that, at least from the Doctor Who community that I follow, my opinions on these episodes are probably going to be in line with the way that most of the Doctor Who community has felt about these three episodes. And we will start, in my opinion, the worst of the three specials. Going in C tier is going to be the Star Beast. Now, you'll see here, I don't have an F tier on this ranking. We don't need it, because the lowest of these three is going to sit in C tier. Now, the Star Beast is a fun episode, and I will give it credit. Of the three specials, the Star Beast is the most complete episode. So why is it in C tier? A variety of reasons. I think the direction is a little weird. It was directed by Rachel Talalay, or Talalay, or however you want to pronounce her name. We've been over this before. Who did great episodes like, I believe she did the finale of Season 8. I know she did the finale of Season 9, and almost certain she did the finale of Series 10. I say season and series interchangeably. You know what I'm talking about. All the Peter Capaldi finales. She came back to direct this episode. The premise of this episode is there's a creature that crashes on Earth, tries to convince the Doctor and Donna Noble's family to assist it before the Doctor realizes that this creature is actually hostile and the creatures attacking this creature are in the right. And it's a little contrived when I say it like that, but I do like many elements of this episode. I thought the handling of Rose, this is Donna's daughter, Rose, the transgender character played by Yasmin Finney, I thought they handled the transgender aspect of the character very, very well for the first half of the episode. I really liked the inclusion of, and back up for a second, this is me speaking as a straight married man. I don't really have a lot of credence or weight to pull in terms of my analyses of transgender characters, but from my opinion, coming from that background, I thought the handling of the character was done very, very well, especially in the first half of this episode. There are issues more so with the story than the character as the episode goes on, but I thought the dead naming of the character by the bullies from school at the beginning was done very tastefully, if you can even say that. I thought the misgendering by Sylvia was done very, very well. I think the handling of the character and the family dynamic surrounding just the I don't want to say issue of transgenderism, but the issues that arise in family dynamics with a changing social atmosphere, which in this episode is centered around a transgender child. I thought it was done very tastefully. I think the reintroduction of Donna was very good. I thought the reintroduction of her family was very good. I loved that they brought the original actor who played her husband back. I actually was curious. I don't know if he was shown in the trailers. I was curious if they were actually going to do that. But they did. They brought everybody back for this episode. We don't see Wilf in this episode. We do see Wilf in the end of the next episode. So that was a little bit of a disappointing cliffhanger that we didn't get to see Wilf in this episode. I thought the Meep was very fun. I will say this. I thought the physical prop that they used for the Meep was shown very well. Some people think the use of CGI was adapted very well. I'm a little less kind to it. I thought this episode looked very weird. I thought the is it the Wraith Warriors? I thought their CGI effect was a little poor. I thought the introduction of Unit was fine. I like the new character, and I do apologize. I've seen each of these 3 episodes twice, and I still haven't got all of the characters' names down. So the new Unit character, who is bound to a wheelchair, for the life of me, off the top of my head, I cannot remember the character's name. I do expect to see her again. I thought she was a fun inclusion. I like her taking over from Kate Stewart in kind of that old role. I do really like that. Issues arise in this episode at the end. The dialogue is really clunky at the end, and we see this issue with all 3 episodes. Like I said, this is the most complete of all of the 3 scripts, but all 3 episodes really struggle with their endings. And the more I think about it, the more I realize this is kind of a common Russell T Davies trope. It was a common Moffat trope too, but more so Russell T Davies the more I look back on the first 4 series of New Who. He doesn't stick landings very well, especially when you talk about something like The End of Time, especially when you talk about something like Stolen Earth Journey's End, that sort of thing. Talk about that more when we get to the giggle. But this episode where the solution is solved by Donna going back on the Metacrisis, and the Metacrisis itself being solved by, it's explained away by transgenderism. That's when I think it gets really weird. When they use transgenderism as a plot point, it's like, of course it would work out because the daughter's transgender. I thought it was a bit of a cop-out in Russell T Davies' writing. Now, I'm not saying that using transgenderism as a plot point is bad necessarily, but I think that, like I said, with the rest of these episodes, it's a Russell T Davies trope where he writes himself into a corner and he basically works his way out with the most profound cop-out that he can think of. And in this episode, it was basically Donna and her transgender daughter saying to the doctor, don't worry about it. Just forget about it. It's fine. The Metacrisis doesn't matter, so forget about it. Which I think was an interesting place to take this episode. I thought Miriam Margolyes, or Margolyes, however you want to pronounce that last name. I know in Britain they usually say Margolyes. In the United States they say Margolyes. And the reason I know the difference between those is because Mark Margolyes is a Breaking Bad actor. Anyways, long story. But I thought she did very well as the voice of the Meep. I thought the Meep was a likable character. Obviously, those of us who know Doctor Who lore know that the Meep was going to be a villain the entire time, and they try to kind of trick us that the Meep isn't a bad character, but very quickly it turns around. I thought the scene with the Doctor in the trial scene was very fun. I like that the Doctor just pulls out the judge's wig. I like various elements of this episode, but I think this is the weakest of the 3. It doesn't really stand out. To me, it's the most forgettable of the 3, and that's why it sits in last place. Now, let's move up to B tier. In second place, it's going to be Wild Blue Yonder. Now, I want to specify this is at the bottom of B tier. This is my personal favorite episode of the 3. It is not the best of the 3, if that makes any sense. I can have personal favorites that I think are worse than others, if that makes any sense. This is my favorite script of the 3. This might be one of my favorite scripts in Doctor Who history. On paper, this episode works really well. The problem is with the execution. It looks terrible. My wife and I watched this together. Like I said, I've seen all these episodes at least twice. I've seen Wild Blue Yonder 4 times now. Third time I watched it with my wife. And she also couldn't get past the fact that specifically the hallway scenes look so bad. All of the physical sets in this episode look phenomenal. The set design is very, very good. When I am watching the hallway scenes, you know what I'm talking about. It looks like, if you're familiar with this, so it looks like Attack of the Clones. But to me specifically, it looks like Revenge of the Sith. This is Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. If you're familiar with the deleted scenes from that movie that never made it into post-production, and so they were never finished, it feels like that. I feel like I am looking at 2003 mid-high budget CGI. And I shouldn't be seeing that in my multi-million-dollar Disney-funded Doctor Who. When the budget is as high as it is, I should not be seeing that in Doctor Who. Like I said, all of the physical sets are very good, but the CGI is very distracting. The lighting on David Tennant and Catherine Tate is so profoundly different than the lighting used in the background. It feels like I'm watching a PS2 video game. I hate that. I love the script of this episode. I think the dialogue is fantastic. My issues more so come with the CGI of the villains and the end of this episode. I feel like the end of this episode was very rushed. I feel like the end of this episode is very contrived. But there are elements that I really, really like. The common consensus on this episode that I've seen from the Doctor Who community is that it does more so for the Doctor's... It does more for the Doctor's understanding of the Timeless Child arc and the Flux than we ever saw with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, and I don't disagree. The scene where the Doctor is punching the wall because he's so frustrated with himself and just trying to come to terms with everything he's been through recently shows more emotion than Jodie Whittaker ever showed as the 13th Doctor. I do want to take a pause real quick and take a drink of water because, I've been talking really aggressively and I can feel my body shaking, and I think I'm just really tired. So I do apologize. Let me take a quick drink break. But like I said, I love the physical sets of this. This episode has elements of a lot of different episodes. One thing I forgot to talk about with the Star Beast is the beginning of the Star Beast, to me, feels like the next Doctor. If you took the scene from the beginning of the next Doctor and instead of having it in Victorian London, put it in modern London, 2023 London. Wild Blue Yonder feels like a mix of the Doctor's wife, Oxygen. I'm trying to think of other episodes that I could compare it to. A little bit of Flatline, actually. We see even more of that in the next episode. But those are the three episodes that I would really compare it to, are Oxygen, Flatline, and what's the one I just mentioned? The Doctor's wife from Series 6. I like the character stuff. I think the reveal of the doppelgangers, you could also say it feels a little bit like the Rebel Flesh, for two reasons. One of them good, one of them not so good. It feels like the Rebel Flesh because the CGI is so bad on the characters. I like the introduction of the doppelgangers. I don't like when it flips to the CGI and they have really long arms and they have the jaws hanging down and then they're stuck in the corridor. The CGI weighs this episode down significantly. I think this is potentially a bottom S tier script if the third act is not as rushed or contrived. I think the countdown timer and the concept of these creatures not understanding time, and therefore that's why the captain of this ship killed herself, is done very, very well. I really like the setting of this episode. I just don't like the execution of it. We do end on a cliffhanger in this episode as... Oh, speaking of the cliffhanger, let me talk about the cliffhanger first, and then let's talk about the beginning of this episode, because I completely forgot to talk about the beginning of this episode. We get the cliffhanger for the beginning of the giggle that gives us the very last Wilfred Mott moment. It's the only section of these three episodes where Bernard Cribbins shows up at the end. I think it's very well done. It sets up the next episode very nicely. Let's step back and talk about the beginning of this episode, because there's a weird cold open for this one where the Doctor and Donna land in an apple tree. and that sparks Isaac Newton's theory of gravity. In this episode, it's a throwaway joke where they introduce the concept of gravity to Isaac Newton, and instead of naming it gravity, he names it mavity because he can't remember the word. This sets up a running joke throughout the episode where every time they would use the word gravity, they instead say the word mavity. It doesn't go anywhere. If it is to go anywhere in Series 14 or Season 1, as I guess the rumor is they're going to call it now, maybe I'll have different opinions on it. The other thing to note is that Isaac Newton is race swapped. I have issues with other... There are bigger race swap issues in fiction than a Doctor Who throwaway gag. The only problem I really had with it was that I didn't necessarily realize who the character was because of the race swap until it was introduced that he was under an apple tree, and then it was like, oh, it's Isaac Newton. They just made him not white. I didn't have a huge issue with that. I know some people do. I know some people don't. Some people are arguing either directions, blah, 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 whatever. I don't really care. My only issue, like I said, was that I didn't immediately recognize who the character was because of the race swap. That being said, the entire sequence itself doesn't add anything to the rest of the episode. It really just serves as a, oh, Donna is having fun in the TARDIS again moment. So be it. That's it. This script is a little messy. Like I said, yeah. Sorry. I really like this script. I think the beginning of it and the end of it should be fixed, and then it would be a perfect script, if that makes any sense. I think all the character work in this episode is great. I think the villains are written very well. That's my opinion on that. I didn't talk about the new TARDIS. How do I feel about the new TARDIS? One thing I don't like about this new TARDIS is that I think it's too big. I don't like enormous TARDISes. I don't like too small. I love the Peter Capaldi TARDIS, right? To me, that is like mid-sized, cozy, functional. You can do everything there. What I do like about this one is it shows all the different rooms. It's got a ton of different doors. I still think it's too big. It's got that weird cavernous feel that the original New Who TARDIS had. It's even bigger than that. It's like the size, if not bigger, than the original Matt Smith TARDIS. And it's also really, to me, bland. I think they're going to do more lighting stuff with the TARDIS lights on the walls during the Ncuti Gatwa era. If they keep it, it was implied that they're going to keep it. I don't have really an opinion on the whole ramp thing. Handicap accessible. I will say it is cool that apparently, and this is apparently true because they talked about it in the behind the scenes stuff. So there's a YouTuber that I follow called Theories, THARRIES. He's basically a news channel for Doctor Who. Talks a lot about just upcoming news for Doctor Who. He's a gentleman who uses a wheelchair and is a massive fan of Doctor Who. As of me recording this, I think he has like something like 20 to 25,000 subscribers. When I started following him, very small channel. It's very cool to see how far his channel has developed. But he has grown such a following that he was invited to the premiere of The Star Beast. Russell T Davies knows him, knows who he is, that sort of thing, and apparently knows Theories so well that now that they've added a wheelchair ramp to the TARDIS, they call it behind the scenes the Theories ramp, which I think is very cool. That being said, I don't think there's a ton of functionality to it, but this is me speaking as someone who doesn't use a wheelchair. I think what the ramped TARDIS does for fans of the show is more important than the functionality in universe of the show, if that makes any sense. That's a very, very in-depth discussion that I don't think I have the credence to judge. So maybe even me saying the things I've already said is going a step in the wrong direction. I would love to get Theory's opinions on just the wheelchair TARDIS, and just what that means to him as a fan of Doctor Who uses a chair. Speaking of using a chair, I don't really have a segue. Anyways, the unit character who does use a chair is back in the Giggle. And the Giggle goes, not an A tier. I'm sorry. It goes top of B tier. This episode also fails in its third act. This episode is very, very good. The first 2 acts of this episode are phenomenal. Neil Patrick Harris is one of the best villain characters we have seen in Doctor Who. His take on the Celestial Toymaker adds layers upon layers to an already great villain from the original. His performance was phenomenal. His interactions with both Donna and the Doctor are phenomenal. There are elements of this episode that are some of my favorite scenes that I've ever seen in Doctor Who. I tweeted about it today when I was watching. The scene where the Toymaker uses the marionettes and goes through the Doctor's history since Donna, talking about Amy, talking about Clara, talking about Bill, is one of my favorite. I don't know why. Genuinely, I don't know why. First of all, I love seeing like new Doctor Who referencing things that I didn't expect them, to reference in the past. And them reference like the concept of Donna and David Tennant's Doctor talking about Bill and talking about Clara and even Amy, like, is bizarre for me to think of. And to see this, the way that they portrayed it in the episode, I thought was done phenomenally. The whole, what is the line that he drops? Whatever, the line he repeats at the end of each segment, like, is it, it's okay then? Or that makes it okay? Anyways, I loved it. I loved Neil Patrick Harris in this role. I thought it was great. I thought the setting was very good. I loved the 1925 London stuff, the toy shop. This had elements of Night Terrors from season 6. Very just horror-esque. There were horror elements in Wild Blue Yonder that I think were undermined by the CGI. In this episode, the CGI still isn't, like, breathtaking, but it's done in such a subtle way that I think it adds an element to this episode. I thought the lighting adds to the sense of horror. I thought the acting of the characters was done better than in Wild Blue Yonder. I thought the music was better than in Wild Blue Yonder. I actually thought the music in this episode was phenomenal. I use phenomenal a lot. I do apologize. Apart from that, so the first act is in modern London, and this is when I was talking about the Segway, the wheelchair. The reason I thought of that is because of the sequence with Kate Stewart at the beginning, where she basically allows herself to portray her worst innermost thoughts, right? So the whole conflict of this episode leading into the Toymaker is that humans all believe they're right. And so in order to avoid this, all of the unit workers and soldiers have bracelets on that basically disallow these thoughts to come to fruition. Kate portrays this to the Doctor by taking hers off and then going on a tirade toward the wheelchair-bound character. I actually thought it was done very well. I love Gemma Redgrave as an actress. I've never loved Kate Stewart as a character. I thought this episode did her very well. It brought back Mel. That's one thing, like thinking about this episode, I totally forgot Mel was in this episode. She doesn't need to be in this episode. I love that they brought her back. I love Bonnie Langford. I hate Mel. Like, genuinely, Mel might be one of my least favorite companions. That's not for Bonnie Langford's trying. Like I said, I love Bonnie Langford as an actress. Never liked Mel. I don't love the Sixth Doctor's era. I love the Sixth Doctor. I don't love his companionship with Mel. I don't love Mel with the Seventh Doctor. I don't love any of her episodes. I don't love anything she's in Doctor Who. I really liked her appearance in Power of the Doctor. I really like her appearance here. She adds wonders to this episode, even if she's forgettable. Does that make any sense? I hope it does. She doesn't need to be in this episode, but seeing Bonnie Langford on screen brightens my day. And she's got some funny one-liners. I really like this stuff when we get into the 15th Doctor appearing. However, I want to contrast this. So, I'm really excited for Shudigawa. I think Shudigawa is going to be a phenomenal doctor. I think he has already shown what he's able to do. Shudigawa uses male pronouns. I do apologize if not. I'm almost certain the answer is yes. I do apologize if not. However, so like I said, I very excited. I thought Shudigawa was phenomenal in this episode. I'm very excited for where the 15th Doctor goes from here. However, as soon as the 15th Doctor arrives in this episode falls apart. The reason being that we, instead of getting a full regeneration, we get yet another David Tennant regeneration cop-out. This is where Russell T Davies' writing struggles again. We already got a second version of David Tennant's Doctor, which is lasting forever in the form of the Metacrisis Doctor. That Doctor is still with Rose. Now we have 14 potentially living forever. I'm not entirely sure what the narrative, like, so in this episode, right, the Celestial Toymaker comes back to Earth. He's got this cool dance scene that is reminiscent of Last of the Time Lords. And then he shoots the Doctor. And the Doctor, instead of just straight regenerating, splits in two, into the 14th and the 15th Doctor. To me, when I watched it, and I got to rewatch it one more time just to make sure that this is truly the case, and maybe they'll specify it more in the Christmas special. My understanding of this is when the Doctors split, the 15th Doctor, his consciousness, his entire being exists out of whatever end of the 14th Doctor's life still has yet to come, if that makes any sense. So the 15th Doctor has already experienced everything that the 14th Doctor still has yet to do, because the 14th Doctor still exists because of this bi-generation. It's a cop-out. Now we have a third version of David Tennant's Doctor that also gets to live forever. I hate that. I hate that. I am more enraged by this than I was about the Timeless Children. Because the Timeless Child arc, we hate it because it rewrites the narrative, right? But it can still work, and we're being shown, especially like in Wild Blue Yonder, we're shown that it can work. We're like, the show is going to go on. It's part of the history now. What I hate about the bi-generation thing is, and I think it was, I can't remember, I think it was DW Fan 91 who said, I mean, a lot of people have the same opinions, but I'm trying to remember who said it best, because Harbo Holmes had a really good opinion on it. DW Fan 91 had a good opinion on it, and I think it was DW Fan 91 who said, this bi-generation and putting the 14th Doctor on Earth, not just alone, but with his TARDIS, is not only a massive cop-out, but it ruins the entire premise of the show, right? Because the Doctor's entire character, regardless of personality traits, regardless of regeneration, the entire purpose of this show has been that the Doctor is running away. When you make the Doctor settle down, and in addition to that, still give the option to escape anytime he likes, that's cake and eating it too. And it goes against the entire premise of the show. It is too mundane. It is not what this show is about. This show is about escapism, and you are destroying the escapism with what you have done to David Tennant's 14th Doctor. That being said, I do like the family thing at the end. I really do. I like that they've brought Mel in. I like the interaction with the family at the end. That is very nice outside of the context of what this is doing to the narrative of the show. In addition to that, like I said, I love Shudigawa. I think he's phenomenal. There's me using phenomenal again. Very excited to see where the show goes from here. However, starting off that Doctor's era with a, he's not really the Doctor because the past Doctor's still alive, and that's not really the TARDIS because the TARDIS split in two and he took the new one. That's bad. To the point where you're going to get sects of the fandom that don't want to acknowledge this character as the Doctor, and you have given a narrative cop-out which gives credence to that argument, because you now have two Doctors, and maybe this new one, the one who is the first black Doctor, the one who is the first possibly openly queer Doctor, you are giving credence to the fact that maybe that's not the real Doctor, because the 14th Doctor is still alive and still kicking and still has an operational TARDIS that is no different from the one that came before. It's kind of a mess. It's a mess narratively. They got rid of the Toymaker in a very contrived way. The game of catch was really weird. I didn't like that. However, the first two acts of this episode are very good. David Tennant is very good. Catherine Tate is very good. Ncuti Gatwa was very good. Gemma Redgrave is very good. Neil Patrick Harris is one of the best actors that I've ever seen take on a villain role in Doctor Who, and I'm glad he did it. I was very hesitant when they announced his casting. I think it was the best choice they ever could have possibly done. I'm glad they didn't do a swerve out and say, nope, this isn't the Toymaker, because we all knew it was going to be the Toymaker. I'm glad they didn't cop out. But the end of this episode is a mess. I still think this is the best of all of the three specials. It gives us way more, and it pulls that much away. I think this easily could have been an A-tier episode, but the third act just falls apart, and it has so many problems. That being said, the 14th Doctor's era, I enjoyed. As a fan of Doctor Who, I love getting new episodes. I'm so excited for Christmas. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get more fan service. Okay. We got fan service. We got Donna back. We got David Tennant back. What am I complaining? We got Bernard Cribbins back, for heaven's sake. What am I complaining about? It didn't feel like an anniversary of the show. And that's okay. That's fine. We did get an anniversary with the Power of the Doctor. This, to me, feels like a very, very short season. It doesn't feel like an anniversary. That's okay. I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. I don't think they're terrible. I think they have a lot of issues. I'm very excited for Ncuti Gatwa in the role. However, given these three slices of what Russell T Davies is throwing on the table, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little hesitant because I think this is on the weaker end of his writing. And if it continues, and if we don't reach the highs of Series 4, if we don't reach the highs of Series 1, if we don't reach the highs of Series 3, don't even make me talk about Series 2, then what's the point of bringing him back at all? There is excitement around the show again. I'm very, very hopeful for the show. I'm very excited for Ncuti Gatwa. I'm very excited to see Millie Gibson as Ruby Sunday. We'll see what lasts by Christmas. These are my opinions. Let me know what you thought in the comments section below. Like I said, the Doctor Who update may come in the next couple weeks, but I might wait till after Christmas. It's already December 9th as of me recording this. It'll probably go out very, very early in the morning, December 10th, at least where I live. So, like I said, let me know your comments, your opinions in the comments section below. Like, share, subscribe, do all those things. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Thank you guys for keeping up with Doctor Who. And we'll see you for the Christmas special very, very soon.